we're going to give you an opportunity here to start repurposing your W-2 professional skills. What do I mean by that? Well, if you have been in the workforce in a traditional job for any length of time, which most people on this call have been 20, 30 plus years, in either a certain profession, maybe you've had multiple professions, maybe you've had multiple industries that you've worked for, you have accumulated a wealth of skills. Now, they might have been categorized under certain titles, director of this, manager of that, vice president of the other, that you may or may not have had any control over. But I can tell you that you have amassed a lot of skills, some of which might even be hidden to you. And one of the things that we're going to start doing here in our next slide is we're going to be looking at how can you repurpose what you already have to reinvent yourself into potentially something new and different. Now, I say potentially because there might be those of you on this call that actually love doing what you've always been doing, and you just want to do the self-employed version of that. That's fine, and that's great. I would dare to say, though, if I've done these sessions enough to know that the good majority of you are looking to break free and say, oh, finally, I can have an opportunity to do something that I've always wanted to do, but you may not know what that is. So here's an exercise that'll help you do that. Okay. So I call this exercise Passion-Tivity. Now, I just need to make an aside. There are a number of you on this call who have either worked with me before or have seen me do this. Even if you've done Passion-Tivity before, I highly encourage you to do it again. Why? Because things change. You change, I change, we all change, and your interests might change. So this is a great chance to redo it. And so what you're going to do is you're going to grab that handy piece of paper and a pen or pencil, and you're going to draw two perpendicular lines down and across the page, and you're going to label the top line. Okay, Michael, I think we'll need to. I just need to drive here. Okay, so high motivations at the top, low motivations at the bottom, high skill is on the right, and low skill is on the left. And what I'm going to do now is walk you through what these four quadrants are, and then we're going to do a brief exercise. Okay, so what this is it's looking at where your skills and your career motivators align, and figuring out how can you take this information and then repurpose it into self-employment. By the way, you can do this if you were just looking for a W-2 job as well. One of my practice areas is career coaching. I do use this with all of my clients all the time. And we just do this for normal career trajectories, but it's wonderful also for self-employment. So in the upper right is high engagement. Now this is the juicy box. This is really where you're going to want to concentrate. So these are skills where you feel you are a rock star. You know it. Everybody knows it. And you love to do this work. I mean, wild horses can't drag you away from this stuff. You give discretionary effort. If you were independently wealthy, you'd still do this kind of work, okay? And we're talking about hard skills, not soft skills. I'll just give you a brief definition. People have different definitions, but this is the quick and dirty one. We're looking at hard skills, meaning functional skills, things that you do. So that could be project management, that could be financial analysis, that could be customer engagement, that could be research and development. There's a million different, probably more than a million different kinds of hard skills. I'm not looking here for your soft skills. Your soft skills would be how you do it. So I'm not looking for you to write down that you're analytical or strategic or great with people. You might very well be those things, but that doesn't really give context for this exercise. For this exercise to work well, you really, really need to focus on what you do, not how you do it. And I'll explain why in just a minute. So high motivation is upper right. And looks like I'm still having some difficulty here with, here we go. Bottom right, stopgap work. What do I mean by that? Well, these are skills that you have, hard skills that you have. You're perfectly, competent in them. And no one would deny that, not even you, but it doesn't exactly wake you up on Monday morning. You know what I'm talking about, right? It's the kind of thing that employers will continue to give you in a traditional W-2 job, because you're never going to complain. You're going to be a good foot soldier. You're not going to roll your eyes other than internally. But it just doesn't really light you up. And oftentimes what will happen in a W-2 job is your high motivation, high skill, low motivation, all of that gets wrapped up in one big job. And your employer, your hiring manager typically does not take the time to pull that apart with you to say, what do you love to do and what don't you love to do? So all of it kind of gets jumbled together. And on the upper left is professional development. So those are areas where you're highly motivated to succeed, but you don't necessarily have the skill yet. Now, I will say, as a slight distinction in this box, there really, and I didn't put this in the slide to break it out, but there's really, to me, two sides of this box. There's what I call the want-to skills and the need-to skills. What do I mean? It's all professional development. You're not particularly skilled at it, but in the want-to side, you really want to get better at it. In other words, it's a get-to. It's a, wow, that would be amazing, as opposed to the need-to, which is the should. All right, so let me give you an example. So let's say you're in marketing, and you say, wow, I'd love to be better at social media strategy. That's a want to. And of course, a marketing person might very well say that. But on the need to side, they might say, and by the way, a lot of marketing professionals are not particularly good with numbers. A lot of communicators not very good with numbers. So the person say, I need to be better at managing. Sorry. Or some people might say, I need to be a better public. Okay, so the need to and want to are two different things, but they're both professional development. And then we have disengagement, right? That's the right? Low skill, low motivation, ixnay on that. It's you're not skilled, not interested in it. It's the opposite of your high. So here's what I'd like you to do for the sake of time. When you're not going to go through all 4 boxes right now, but I'd like to give you a minute or so. I know that sounds like no time whatsoever, but I want this to be very, very organic, okay? And all I want you to do is just fill out the high motivation, high skill box. Now this is important if you take time to do this for a minute, because the next 2 exercises, we're going to build on that, okay? So again, the instructions are, look at your hard skills, things you're great at, and this could be from any time in your career. It could be professional skills, it could be hobbies, volunteer work that you've done, as long as it's a skill. I'll give you a quick example. So I do a lot of volunteer work, and typically when I've been on chapter boards and things, for some reason I end up as like the programs chair, okay? And I end up doing a lot of meeting planning. Now, I'm not a meeting planner in my day job, but I developed some skills and I actually really enjoyed it, okay? So that's a skill I possibly could put down somewhere if I were doing Passion Tivity for myself. So as long as it's something you've done, even if you haven't gotten paid for it, it goes there. So maybe 5, 6, 7 things. So go ahead and take a minute, and I'll let you know when the time is up. And by the way, these could be strategic skills, they could be tactical skills, big skills, small skills, it doesn't matter as long as it is meaningful to you. Okay, let's come back. So now that you have that done, and I really would encourage you to fill out the rest of it as you go back. Michael, I'm stuck again here. If you could help me out, the next slide. Thank you. So now we're gonna go a little bit deeper. And the first thing we're gonna do is talk about something that I call an ing skill. What in the world is that? Well, it'll make sense in a second. So this ing skill, what you just wrote in that high skill, high motivation box are a bunch of ing skills, things you do, writing, event planning, financial analysis, that kind of thing. Not necessarily an ing, but you get the point. It's something that you do. But we're going to help you right now turn some of those ing skills into, oh boy, stuck again. Here we go. And oh, Michael, can you take me back for a sec?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to do this remote sharing, it didn't work so well. Okay, so we're going to turn this into an business. So writing is the skill, writer is the business. Event planning is the skill, event planner is the business. Pretty straightforward, right? Most people don't think of this because you're not normally given the opportunity to think this way because somebody else is doing your They're calling you a director, vice president of XYZ, and you normally can't repurpose your skills in a whole new business. And I want to give you a real example that I love, a story that I love to share. It was a coaching client of mine a number of years ago named Jacqueline. And she came to me as, and just for regular career coaching. She was a regular W-2 employee, wasn't necessarily thinking of going on her own. She was the president of a nonprofit. And when I had her do the Tivity, in her high skill, high motivation box, she put what you might think a nonprofit president would put. She put board relations, and she put, budgeting and operations and this and that. And in and among them, she just sort of listed event planning. It was just about a list of about 7 different items. So I said, okay, Jacqueline, now that you've done that, I want you to take a new lens. I want you to go just over the high box, high skill, high motivation. I want you to look at those ing skills and let me know if any of those skills jump off the page to you as ones that you love doing so much that you could actually see yourself doing it full-time, repurposing that one thing to do that full-time. If I gave you permission, what would you do? And within about 32 seconds, she just lit up. Her eyes got big. She almost jumped across the table and she said, event planning. I said, well, what do you mean? She goes, no, you don't understand. She said, donor events. I said, what? She said, I am so good at planning donor events, fundraising events. She said, I have other nonprofit colleagues in my region who reach out to me on a regular basis and say, Jacqueline, would you help us plan our donor event? She says, I love it. She goes, we raise more money than you can shake a stick at. We have people laughing and crying and thising and thatting. And I said, wow. I said, Jacqueline, I know you didn't come to me for this reason, but do you think maybe, you could consider doing this as a full-time job, as your own business? She goes, absolutely. Well, in a matter of time, humanimpactevents.com was born. Okay. And that was all because of this exercise. And that's why I focus so much on the ing and the concept, because this gives you this rich opportunity to take all the skills that you have, whether you've been paid for them or not, and repurpose them. And it may not be just one thing. It may be multiple things. So it might be that you cobble together this casserole of work where you do a bunch of different kinds of freelancing. Maybe you do some writing and some event planning and some bookkeeping and closet organizing, whatever you want to do. You don't necessarily have to put it all under the rubric of one solid business. You could have multiple practice areas that could be disconnected. Now, a lot of people do choose to put it under one rubric, like I'm sort of a workforce person, so I'm a recruiter and a career coach. I do some team building and executive coaching and diversity work and this and that. Michael does all kinds of work with associations. I mean, I do too, but he does it in a different way. He works with boards and all of this. So both of us have brands that fit in a particular sector, but you don't necessarily have to do that if you have multiple skills that you want to verify, if I can say it that way. You can take them and you can cobble them together, and you don't necessarily have to have one brand. Okay, Michael, if you could help me out with the next slide. Thanks. All right, so let's go ahead and inventory your skills again. Like we're gonna take this and I'm going to give you another chance to go silent. So here's the ing skills that you enjoy, right? Take it from your high skill, high motivation box. Now what I want you to do is I want us to think about this first. So I'm going to give you another minute here. Actually, I don't even have to give you a minute. I think you'll be able to figure this out in about 15 seconds, but we'll give you a little longer than that. I'd like you to take a look at this list. You probably have already done it as I was talking, and see, are there any skills in your high skill, high motivation box that jump off the page to you where you're like, wow, if I could have the opportunity to do this thing full time, I'd love it. And by the way, don't limit yourself by your perceived lack of knowledge. Because number one, you know more than you think you do. And guess what? We should be continuous learners anyway. So maybe like me, let's just say you were like me and you did meeting planning on the side. You never did it for full time. You recognized you had a talent in it and it was kind of interesting to you. Take a class. There are all kinds. YouTube University, right? You can go and learn online. There are all kinds of ways for you to build your skills. Don't limit yourself by the fact that you've never actually had that as a full title. Okay, so let me just give you a few more seconds to think about it, and then we'll go to the next one. Just circle any of those ing skills that you really feel could be an business. Okay, and the next thing you want to do is look at your passions or hobbies. Now, this gets really interesting because there's what you do, and then there's who you do it for. and even the kind of sector maybe that you want to work in. So maybe you have a passion for the environment, or maybe you have a passion for, I don't know, you have an interest in commercial real estate, whatever. You might have this interest in some sort of sector or field, or maybe it's been a hobby. You're a gardener, you're a photographer, whatever you are on the side, that maybe you can repurpose into something new. And I'm going to give you an examples in a minute here. Sorry, we're trying to get this done here. And then the last thing is, which can you monetize? Oh, we back up, Michael. We're not quite ready for that one yet. Get the writing. So want to be thinking about what you can monetize. So once you've figured out what your ink skills are, what any urges that you have, and any passions that you have, you're going to put it all together and say, who wants to pay for what I want to sell? So for example, okay, so let's just say writing is your high skill, high motivation. Let's say your is freelance writer. Let's say environmental conservation is your passion. Then maybe you can write articles for environmental nonprofits, right? Maybe accounting or budgeting is your ing skill. Sorry, Michael. I think maybe what needs to happen is if you could lift off with the cursor. Oh, maybe I can still do this. Okay, the maybe bookkeeper, right, is the version. Volunteering with elderly populations maybe is a hobby or passion you've had. So maybe you can do bookkeeping services for nursing homes. You see how that all fits together? It's a fairly straightforward kind of thing. Now, you have to do some research. You have to put your noggin on. You got to be thoughtful about this. You got to be thinking, okay, well, not only what do I want to do and what am I interested in, but what kind of organizations might benefit from and find value from the thing that I actually want to offer. That's why it might be helpful for you to look at different kinds of skills to see if there are multiple practice areas that you could have. You may want to try things out, test it out. You don't necessarily have to stick with one thing all at once. Okay. Now, once you've kind of gone through